SuperFans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday Night Football Preview edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, PodVader here. Ugh, I know. It's the New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. But hey, at least it's football, right? We've got football on Thursday night, right? Yeah. Well, the one thing I do know is we've got a great superfan battle here between the guy we belovingly call Crazy Jared, who is our Giants superfan, and of course Eagles James. You all know and love him from such podcasts as the Thursday edition, the Not a Week recap, or what we might end up renaming the NFL Sound Off from Tuesday podcast. So Eagles James and Crazy Jared coming up for you. How about right now?
All right, Next Fan Up fans. My name is James. I'm the Eagles superfan. I'm here with Jared, our Giants superfan, and we're going to give you a brief, and I do mean brief, preview of Thursday night's action, as I use air quotes, between the Eagles hosting the Giants in what has become, after 6 weeks, an abysmal NFC East division and its standings, where all four teams still have a chance to win a division outright. Jared, outset, just initial thoughts of the season so far in this game.
Man, season so far is rough for both of our teams. Like, the amount of injuries we both sustained, especially with the Giants losing the heart and soul of their team for the entire year, pretty bad. And the Eagles lost basically their entire offensive starting unit except for Wentz. So, I mean, both of us are like beat up, not looking good. But fortunately, we look across the division and we're like, oh, Cowboys suck, and the team from Washington also sucks. So we're still in it somehow, even though each of us only have one win.
Yeah, and that's what's really perplexing here, is that our division leader, the Dallas Cowboys, 2-4, Eagles 1-4-1. Your Giants and the Washington football team, both 1-5, but you did get your first win of the season, beating Washington this week. So some positive looking forward to. I can't really see much positive in the Eagles season thus far. I mean, as Pod would say, there are no moral victories in football, but things are supposedly looking promising, but I have no idea. Let's start with the Giants with the football. And yes, we know that Saquon pretty much was lost week one for the season, ACL. You signed Devontae Freeman as a running back. You still have some weapons there on the outside at wide receiver and tight end. The offensive line still hasn't come around yet. But I think the shocking thing about this offense, aside from its struggles, is your quarterback is leading your team in rushing.
Yeah, there's no running game. It's just been sequel. There was no plan B that they had Giants set up. I mean, you have players like Dion Lewis and other players who are washed up, not good players, and you expect them to take over for what's a generational talent in Saquon. It's just not going to happen. The offensive line is better than it was last year. We're improving. We're getting things together. DJ still has way too many issues with turnovers, so that's been basically a glaring issue. We've played a lot of close games. We've lost a number of one-score games. The Giants have been in games against quote-unquote good teams like the Bears, which they're not, but anyways. But yeah, the running game's just not there. It's not going to be there against the Eagles either. We're not going to be able to run it against you. So it's going to be a passing game, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and if it becomes a passing game, then you have to worry about our pass rush. Front four for Philadelphia, still okay, not as great as it was a couple of years ago. We do have a couple of hits. I mean, the secondary is still in shambles. The linebacking core can be pretty much destroyed with any form of play action. It really rests on the defensive line with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham for those two to lead the charge to get after Daniel Jones. keep him in the pocket, contain him, and not allow him time to find these wide receivers, because outside of Darius Slay, there's nothing on the back end of our defense. Malik Jackson most likely will not be available for this game. He sustained a quad injury on Sunday. Kavon Wallace is probably not going to play with his shoulder injury. Avonte Maddox and Duke Riley are still questionable at this point on our defensive side. Yeah, the offensive line for you all is playing better, but I mean, I can hear it in your voice. It still doesn't give you much hope for any type of significant offensive production, but yet both of our teams are giving up over 25 points a game. So, I mean, I can't see this being lopsided in any way, shape, or form. I see a close game here where, you know, probably the last team with the ball scores. I mean, from my perspective, I can only hope that with the rash of injuries we have on offense, pretty much works out the way it did last year, because we find ourselves in a similar situation. We're playing each other twice over the next 4 weeks, and that's what it was last year. The last 4 weeks of the season, we played each other twice. And it was a lot of backups, cut and paste, third string guys off the street coming in to fill the void for some key starters. The only difference between last year and this year is that last year it was skill position players, and this year, like you said, it's everybody on offense. It's the only starters who are going to suit up, who started opening day, are Jason Kelsey, the center, Zach Ertz, the quarterback. We're going to have backups across the board because no Miles Sanders. I'm not banking on Alshon Jeffrey or Deshaun Jackson, no matter what the injury reports say. You know, they have hamstring and foot injury respectively, and those are things that they've been trying to come back from since last year. So I'm not banking on them, but Travis Fulgham I expect to be there. There will be no Zach Ertz. He's officially been ruled out with his knee and ankle injury. So, and also no Dallas Goedert. So, I mean, it's Boston Scott, Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, Richard Rodgers at tight end. That's pretty much the best that we're going to be able to throw out there. Talk to me about your defense as far as what they can do, because it did show some promise last week with a fumble return for a touchdown against Washington.
Yeah, so the defense of the Giants improved greatly, and I actually had them as like a very middling, like a team this year coming in. I had them as basically like a top 10 secondary. I had the Giants as like a 20th-ish linebacker crew, maybe even worse than that, 25. And then I had them as the D-line is kind of around that 20 mark again. So kind of putting them like around that 15 to 18 in the NFL for like total defense. Unfortunately, this season we've been plagued by injury on the linebacking crew with 3 or 4 injuries there. Our secondary has also sustained about 4 or 5 injuries the season so far. So injury-wise, not been good. It's been those two areas. Our D-line's been pretty solid, and Bradbury's been a huge bright spot since we picked him up from the Panthers. Definitely the best player on defense that we have, and so I look for him to just shut down whoever he's up against for the Eagles. There's no one on the Eagles roster that scares me at wide receiver or tight end, especially the ones that are healthy, to do anything against him. But he can't play all the positions, so I do look for the Eagles to move the ball pretty easily, actually. I don't think you can run it very well against us, but I think you can pass it. I think there's a lot of holes.
That's something that's been discouraging about this Eagles team, is that I look at Peterson's mentor, Andy Reid, and what he did with Kansas City on Monday night, where they basically ran the ball 41 times, and no Andy Reid coach team has ever run the ball that much. If a running back somehow managed to get 100 yards on 15 or less carries, then that was good enough for Andy Reid's offense. And it seems that's been rubbing off on Doug Peterson, because for the handful of games that Miles Sanders has been healthy, the moment he gets over 90 yards is like Doug Peterson forgets what running the ball is. And these are games that are only one score. And whether we're up or down by that one score, he just completely abandons the run, goes away from it, doesn't really seem committed to it. So I don't know if it's the aspect of us not being able to run. I think it's more so us being committed to the run. And with our banged up offensive line, like I said, Kelsey's probably going to be the only day one starter out there with 4 backups. The running game is something that should be leaned on. I've railed on our Thursday show all the time that Carson Wentz should never be the focal point of this offense. He hasn't shown any of the flash or brilliance that he had during that run to the Super Bowl. And he looked like he's pressing too much. He's forcing things. He's staring down wide receivers and making things easier for defenders, hence why he leads the league in interceptions right now. Do want to point out a couple of injuries for your New York Giants that I see here on the injury report as we're recording. You have 2 receivers, Slayton with a foot, CJ Board is in a concussion protocol, and Darnay Holmes, your cornerback, with a neck injury right now. Are the biggest names I'm seeing on the injury report. Your thoughts on those injuries and whether you think they'll actually suit up and play? I'm pretty sure Slayton will.
Yeah, Slayton's the one. The other ones for sure no, but I think that even though I don't want them to, I think they probably will make Slayton go out there and play. He should just be honestly held out because it's a short week. There's been so many injuries on the team, and wide receivers too. Tate's been injured before. Risking it seems silly to me, but I understand why they'd want to, because they're looking at this like, oh, hey, we can tie for the division lead if we win, so bring our best foot forward. No pun intended there. And but I mean, I kind of just see this as Eagles winning on a field goal at the end after dominating time of possession.
Yeah, that's basically how the Eagles are going to have to win this game is time of possession. Either that or somehow tap into whatever worked the last year for our last 2 games with all the backups coming in. Like you said, you have one guy back in the secondary. He can't guard everybody. We do have a handful of pieces to throw to. It would be nice if J.J. Arcega-Whiteside could actually blossom in this offense. It doesn't look like he's going to be long for this offense. I expect him to be cut at the end of the year because he just hasn't had the opportunity to prove himself. And part of that is on his development, and the other part is on Carson Wentz not getting him the ball. Final thoughts on the game, your X factor?
It's just going to be DJ's turnovers.
Yeah, and the same Carson Wentz protecting the ball. Granted, last week he didn't throw any interceptions against Baltimore. He did fumble once, and that was lost on a read option where he kept the ball, which is surprising because he hasn't done that a lot recently. Yeah, I think the X factor for both these teams is quarterback turnovers, whether it's interceptions or fumbles. Secondarily, I'll have to go to the Eagles' defensive line because that's going to have to be the dominating factor in this game. All 7 to 8 of those guys, whoever, when they hit the field, they just pretty much have to manhandle their opposite numbers to give the Eagles a chance to win. Otherwise, I can see the Giants winning 2 straight. And like you said, tied for the division lead, albeit, 1 back because of the tiebreaker, loss to Dallas 2 weeks ago. Any other thoughts or insights before we wrap this up?
And no one wants to watch this game, especially since it's the only game on Thursday, but at least it's not the Jets playing.
Oh, man. Yeah, you had to kick a team while it's down. Look, you're absolutely right about that. It's not the Jets. It's still horrible to see that these are the 2 teams on Thursday, but this is why the schedule is set up this way, because of instances like this. You try to get the teams that you think are going to perform poorly throughout the year early on, though. I don't think they expected both these teams to be this bad this early. So
yeah, agreed.
All right, for Jared, the Giants fans, I'm James, the Eagles fan, signing off.
There goes crazy Jared and Eagles James. The Giants are 1-5. They are at the Eagles, who are 1-4-1. I know you come here for the spoilers because it's a little early for the power rankings from the SuperFans, but I can tell you that the New York Giants are no longer the second worst team, according to the SuperFans. They are now at 30. Philadelphia is at 26. So we are talking about bottom of the league teams. Philadelphia is favored by 4.5 points, according to Vegas. I don't have much here on Daniel Jones versus the Eagles. I do have a note here on Darius Slayton in his only career game at Philadelphia, which was week 14 in 2019. He had 5 catches for a career high, 154 and 2 touchdowns. Blake Martinez right now, probably one of the bright spots on the Giants defense, if you can call anything on the Giants defense a bright spot. With 14 tackles last week, he is second in the league with 64. James Bradbury the rookie, recorded his second interception of the season last week. He now has 10 passes defensed, which is tied for the most in the NFL. And of course, as Neil, our Washington superfan, will tell you, it's when you're going to get picked on when you're a rookie. Now, Carson Wentz does not have a great record here against the Giants other than the one that counts, and that's wins. The Eagles have actually won the last 7 versus the Giants. Wentz has only 5 touchdown passes and 1 interception for a 93.8 rating in 4 career home starts against the Giants. Boston Scott doesn't get to play a lot, but when he does, he plays well against the Giants. He's aiming for his 3rd in a row against the Giants with at least 125 scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown. I mean, I got to go with the Eagles. I think the Eagles have better talent, but at the end of the day, this is a tie. Flip a coin, and whichever team you picked for heads is your winner, or vice versa. Whichever team you picked for tails is your winner. But this is not going to be... like I said at the beginning, at least we've got football on Thursday night, right? Yeah? Maybe watch that episode of The Boys. Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, we will have a full preview of all the games from Week 7 coming to you on Thursday, as we always do. I believe Doc is going to be back with us this week, which will be fantastic. And, of course, I'll have a litany of superfans, and I'm sure Eagles James will be one of them. And we will give you all of our picks, our locks, our upset specials, and whatnot. Now, you may not want them from me because last week, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, was my worst week of prognosticating football ever. I mean, not from picks to fantasy. It was as if I have never watched a game of football ever. Everything went wrong for me. It was a terrible, terrible week of football for me. But we're going to bounce back. I feel it. I feel it in my bones. We're coming back. We're going to come on strong, and we're going to finish the season strong because that's what we do. All right. nextfanup@gmail.com to email us with any comments, questions, what have you. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, of course, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. Another great way to get in touch with us. Until the Thursday previews, there you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.